What's up, folks? Bill Davis here, Ancestry. We're moving and grooving, folks.
Really?
Listen, you guys ask and listen. I love all the good energy and things like that, but sometimes what we need are people who may disagree. All right, I love disagreement. I hate disagreement, but I love disagreement. And
I disagree strongly.
I have another longtime friend. We met in the gaming world. Yes, I play video games. I don't play them now because my kids pretty much play them. But when I met this person, his first name was Cynical Lord, which you see in the background. And he's out from the Indiana area, and we won't give his complete location, but you know, he always was a person that I looked at as a contrarian. He would like to see it all burn down, to be the king of ashes. And we brought him on because my last video, when I talked about are we failing in life, are we failing in education, you know, he listened to it and he gave me, you know, some points that I think we all need to be open to. And I want to open the floor and get into, you know, when people disagree with certain points. And let's hear what he has to say. Okay, so folks, everybody, Ancestry Lands family, I just learned, man, we're all the way from here to Japan. So I left from California, went east, and I have to go back west to say thank you for my subscribers all the way in Japan. We're international now, baby. Ancestry Lands International, the Ali family. All right, boombaye, if you will. And give everybody a round of applause. Like, share, subscribe. Remember, Ancestry Lands is where you go to get property ownership, wealth mindset, all those things and above. And I want to welcome my guest, another guest, a young man that I've known for quite a long time, and some of the members of his family too. We had a nice gamer community that we built up, and he used to kick my butt all the time in a lot of the games.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
Especially Civilizations, which I'm not sponsoring, or hasn't sponsored this show. So if you want some clout, you better come sponsor the show if you're doing anything. Any which way, Mr. Cynical Lord, Mr. Chaotic Cynic, man, he's just evolving his name into what he's all about. This is my contrarian, folks. Let's get into the topic right now. Mr. Cynic, how are you today?
I'm doing all right. Although
right.
I will say that back in the time of playing Civilization, it wasn't that hard to beat you.
Shout out to Tipsy Jules, my brother in the gaming world, who also suffered at the hands of the Germans, as Cynic loved to play. He did all the all the technology upgrades and came in with tanks when we were still barbarians. So he showed us the colonizer, a repeat of history.
To be fair, though, I had to wait for somebody to get tanks. So,
Yo, could you imagine a game playing where you're sitting there and you're Egypt or somewhere else, and you're building up a culture. If people don't know Civilizations, you go through the cultures of the world and you're building up, trying to get to modern era. And you know, you haven't even gone through running water, and in comes German tanks. The Blitzkrieg is already at your door, running over your. It's like if you sent the Germans back, and I don't mean any disrespect to Germans, as we're just talking about the game. If you sent them back in time to like go up against like Vikings, like it's crazy. He's just rolling in with tanks.
Usually about 100 armies per player. So yeah.
Right. So he was more tactical. My brother and I were more like, okay, we're just gonna, you know, play the game for fun. But he was very much like, you know. And my favorite was to drop the big nuclear bomb on people if I can get to it. But I usually had to deal with his tanks. Any which way, folks. Welcome, Mr. Cynic. How are you today?
Doing all right. Just kind of chilling out for a bit today, and then girlfriend's gonna go hang out with some friends, so it's gonna be nice and quiet.
Good. And you see, folks, how old are you? Could you just give us your age?
28.
Well, how old?
28.
Okay, so folks, you know, I have a younger audience. I'm myself 41. You've seen Mr. Don Coombs, and we're both in our 40s, older, middle-aged generation, and I do have a younger audience. This is the proof in the pudding. So can you go back over, let's just talk about the video first, and what were your points? Let's just talk about the first point of the educational school system itself from your view. Now, a little bit of, let's just get a setting up here. You grew up in a more affluent area. correct?
Yeah. So I grew up in an area where the upper middle class was kind of like the norm.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would kind of argue that we were a little higher than that. But it was a situation where like we had everything we could want. We really didn't struggle with anything. I mean, we'd wake up one day and there'd be food in the kitchen. So I mean, like we never had any of those issues growing up. So, but yeah, that's kind of the background that I kind of come in from.
And a lot of the things I spoke about with the school system, the things from, you know, I guess where I grew up in were kind of more in the middle class, kind of were moving up as I got older. In my older years, late teens, we finally got into that upper stratosphere, upper middle class. The things I talked about, the education, when we spoke on the phone, you were saying that some of the, you know, financial education, like understanding banking, understanding some credit systems, that was a different experience for you in the affluent background and the affluent area that you're at, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Because growing up, so my parents did buying me a couple of cars. Growing up, I had an SUV, a Bonneville that we actually kind of got from my stepdad's father when he passed away, and then they bought me my Jetta, which lasted me until here just recently.
Right.
So I mean, and when they did that stuff, they're like, okay, this is why we're doing this. Is what we're doing. We're gonna try to get you a credit score. We're putting your name on it, and then we're going to we're gonna make the payments, but you're gonna benefit from it, so that way you can actually have something when you get established and stuff.
Got it. And you know, and again, I want to educate people on the fact is that, you know, a lot of times it's not like he asked for this. You know, this is just a matter of your environment, your home environment, and you now just saw an example of the different conversations happening between one household from affluent, and then again is to highlight that there are certain conversations not being had in other households. It has nothing to do with racism, has nothing to do with what class you're born into. It has everything to do with, once you have the knowledge, you get the knowledge, it's to pass on the knowledge and to do these things that he's talking about, you know, having cards in your name, building up the credit, building up his ownership, and then handing off where he can now use that template moving forward. But then that's from the home environment. But then you said in school as well, in the area where you lived at, the affluent schools, they had that supplementary education for you, right? For finances, you were saying they were like electives and things like that?
Yeah, we had a lot of electives, especially when it came to like accounting and stuff like that, like home accounting. Just kind of giving you an idea of like how like basic knowledge of how like the banking system worked, and the fact that like they don't actually hold on to all of the money that you have in your bank account. They actually only hold, I think it's like 10% of the money that you have in your account, and then they take all that other money and they kind of just send that off every which way for like loans and stuff. And then that's why you get an interest on your bank account, is because they pay you back as kind of like a thank you for letting them use your money.
Wait a minute.
Right. They're paying you for getting more money off the money they've taken out of your bank to leverage. Yeah. So what was this in? This wasn't in college though. This was
high school.
Like high school for you? Middle school?
Yes.
This
was in high school.
What were we saying?
This is in high school. I was maybe probably would have turned just 16 when I started taking some of these. Okay. But yeah, like they went pretty in depth depending on how far down the elective path you went. But like the very basic one was like balancing a checkbook, or what is credit? How do you, like, what gives you credit? Not necessarily like all the intricacies of it, but just like, hey, you have a credit card, you spend some money, you pay it off, and then you have a credit score. That's kind of what it kind of evolved into.
So with everyone else, I just want you to take and understand something. Now, again, you know, this is the area, the type of broadening of education in the form of electives at 16. I didn't get that education. My father actually had to send me to a Catholic high school out of the area
If you listen, help!
that we lived at in order to expand my education. But for most of the public school systems in the East Coast, West Coast, these are not, ask yourself, do these classes exist for you at 16? You couple that with being raised in an environment where your parents are talking to you about credit, it's reinforced at home. You now can get an understanding on how it's not these rich elite people trying to keep bottom people down. It's all about your environment and the education that you're given. Would you agree?
Yeah, although I would say that some of it is more also at home, because growing up, like we had like a standard. Like it wasn't just like, hey, you're gonna go to school today. It was you're gonna go to school and you're gonna actually like achieve this. Like they set a bar for what you had to achieve.
Right.
And kind of in response to that, me and my brother also kind of got into a habit of expounding on it. So it wasn't just, hey, we got an A or a B or whatever. It was like, hey, we got an A or a B, but like we also understand how this works or how that works or anything like that. So like for me, I was very heavily into like the political side.
You're trying your best, but it never feels like enough.
The science side, and the history side. So I was a little bit more spread out, but my brother was very much scientifically based. So he did a lot of like chemistry and all this other stuff, because he had originally wanted to go in and be like a doctor or something.
Right.
After I ended up taking a psychology course, I really fell in love with it. So that's kind of the path I went down. And then kind of expounding upon that, like going from undergrad to grad, it was very much like it wasn't any more of like, hey, here's the premise or here's like the subject that we're talking about. Just kind of what are the answers to A, B, and C? It was, here's our topic, go find it. And so that kind of instilled into me like, hey, if I want to look up like what is the political structure of Namibia or whatever like that back in days of yore, I would be able to go in and like kind of look through like, here are the sources that I could use, here's some reliable ones, this one's a little bit more iffy because it's based more on like even the difference of having .org versus .com in its name drastically changed the validity of the source.
Got it. Let me ask you this then, where do you see the breakdown then? Because I mean, you're younger, and I want the younger audience to feel like they're represented here, because I'm sure there's areas where you lived at, even in the state or maybe nearby, that you could see the difference in what was being provided in education. If maybe that was 2 towns over, but where state by state, given the different politics involved, but why is that not standardized throughout the educational system? Why is it only in different areas, and in some areas where it's not? Like, I never had that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it.
In your own opinion, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a bigger question than you think. So basically, because there's no incentive to do it, because that's not. So what was it called? What was the George Bush policy? No child left behind. Yeah. So that system is widely regarded to be a failure. No matter where you look at it, it's widely regarded to be a failure, because it's looking at the standard test scores and then providing funding based off of that, which seems backwards to me, but it was the time. But anyway, so like it was based off standardized test scores. Well, the standard test scores were based off of what? Math, literature, maybe one other thing. I don't remember what it was.
Like your basic core. What is core?
Yeah. So that's what a lot of
Common Core
schools. Yeah, that's what a lot of schools started to focus on, was because that's all we needed. And if we wanted to get the funding, and they were struggling for funding, they would just be like, hey, we need you to get this many A's or whatever, like this certain score. And so they would kind of forego like the arts or like anything creative or anything that wasn't necessary or useful. Because like in your video you said we're brought up or educated to be consumers. Well, basically the education system is just a cookie cutter thing of making workers. I mean, whether you go to college or not, high school is like, what do you do in high school? You sit at a desk, you do your work, and then you go home. Now, granted, you generally might get up and go to a different classroom, but you still sit at a desk, do your work, go home, do more work, come back, and repeat the cycle over and over again. The only choices you really got was whether or not you did any electives such as, or extracurriculars such as like football, or like I did the academic teams, that kind of stuff. So it really wasn't a focus because it wasn't going to get you funding. You weren't going to get funding because you taught somebody how to balance a checkbook.
Wow.
So a lot of the schools that had a little bit more funding, whether that was because the property taxes were a little bit higher, or they had a massive like football culture or sports culture, a lot of those schools, unfortunately, generally speaking, more like your downtown schools where they aren't as affluent or anything like that, they're the ones that tended to get skimped on when it came to a lot of these electives, when it came to teaching kids like, hey, you don't need to work a 9 to 5. You could find kind of like what you do. You could trade property or anything like that, because no one taught them there are ways to do it that don't involve you shilling out tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars just to buy like an acre of land and then do what with it. So
I'm going to ask too as well. So, again, folks, I think people might have just missed some really great gems that he just dropped. And I think that for the parents, such as myself, and the future parents such as yourself, that's in that age generation, you have to really understand when you're meeting someone, you're getting into a relationship. Now that I'm married for 10 years and you're in a relationship moving in that direction, if you so choose, you have to make sure that you understand the neighborhoods, your property taxes. We talk land, and this stuff comes into play when we talk about land. The property taxes, the areas of affluence, they're not defined by race. They're defined by the education and the economic status of your whatever you're able to bring. And being in these areas, you're able to benefit by your kids growing up and having a different exposure in their education and their environment. If you're growing up and you have Mr. Cynic as a friend, the conversations like I talked about, and why do you want the things you want in life, you're going to have a different circle of conversations when you're talking to him, like I've done over the years. They're high level conversations when you're 16, 17, even if it's at an entry level. The difference in environment, like say the downtown area, that doesn't have the certain amount of funding. The children growing up in that environment aren't exposed to things like the electives, the extracurricular. They don't have that broad, buffet of educational diet to consume. Where in your area, the affluent area, they have a wider variety of things that they consume educational wise. So when you are creating peer groups, when your children are growing up in these environments, the peers that they start to form and grow older with in life, the conversations is based off a wider diet of what is educationally consumed.
Okay. So
generally
okay. Very, very much a generalization,
right?
Because there are people who live in those areas, but they live very small lives. Like, so for example, like I say we grew up upper middle class, but my mom is very much like, no, we don't have that. Or like, we don't make that much money. And I tell her like, the average salary is like a quarter of what you bring in, right? She's like, wait, what? So it very much also is like kind of the perspective that they have on money, because to her, money's nice.
Right.
You can go do stuff.
Yeah.
But it's not the all be all. So
Right.
I mean, it's how you also treat it that also kind of informs like kind of like how people react to it. So
I'm going to say, folks, is from the other side of it, because I think Mr. Senek brought in two great points of don't assume that they don't want to learn. Your children don't want to learn. And a lot of it is they just don't know. And again, from my side, being on the early 40s, it's our job, if we don't understand it, to still teach them to learn it, so that way we can make sure that they know ahead of time. You know, even if we don't know, if you're having problems in an area, you don't understand something, you should sit your kids down to be the example that if you don't understand something, you should look for it, just like I'm doing, but get them ahead of time. Again, it's passing on that torch, but it's a torch that it shows them how you did better from your example, that your failures or your lack of education, and then the proficient things that you are educated in. So they get to understand that, hey, this same problem I have, don't follow that example. And I think when you talked about those things, it's things I never even considered. And when I talked about that video of things I'm doing with my kids, I just put on a simple YouTube video and just had them watch like a cartoonish version of what are interest rates. And then we sat down and talked about it. You think about you giving your kid a tablet all day, you just need to sit down. And my wife, she didn't understand it that well, and she just watched it with them. And we just had a conversation about basic interest rate. My daughter's 8 years old, my son is 6. They were able to at least give me the definition, and we went through examples on a small scale of what interest rates are. And I mean, again, when you called me, there's always this, oh, the young people don't know anything. There's always this, you don't want to listen to what they're saying. But when you have an open mind, we have a show like this, we have a conversation like this where the points you're bringing are valid. And that changes how I look at my kids, and what I need to do to prepare them is not just sending them to school, making sure they have the things that they need in life. There's more that we all need to do as parents, and there's more that we need to set up and be an example for generations like yours and listen to. We need to be open to listening to your generation. And I'm so glad that you challenged me to get onto the show to bring those counterpoints in there. It's like, hey, you didn't tell anybody what you were doing with your kids. And it's like, no, I am. You know, we're having the conversation about these things from the very small steps, and we're building. And there's things I didn't even know, you know. So I want to thank you again for joining us, for talking. Folks, just leave a like and a comment, and please share this, because this is for your generation. And for my generation and older, we really need to sit down and reevaluate ourselves and start looking at the young generation as the future, because they are our future, you know, and we need to be more working with them than against them. And we need to stop making them live our pain. We need to stop making them live our suffering. And we need to promote them getting more advantages in life. Mr. Senek, thank you so much. I hope we can have you back on our show to talk about different topics. Leave a comment below. Follow Mr. Senek on Xbox. Challenge him. If you have Civilization, Sid Meier's Civilization, who is not a sponsor of the show, Sid, you're going to have to pay some money to get on the show. But challenge him. Send him a friend request and let him know that you saw him there. Leave a comment below. And Mr. Senek, we would love to have you back. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's definitely fun to catch back up, because it's been a while. So.
How long have we known each other? How long has it been?
Are you confused with today's real estate market? With high interest rates and overpriced housing, it can be hard to find something to own at the right price. Available on Amazon, Getting Dollars from Dirt by author Philip H. Davis is a game-changing book that invites you to embark on a thrilling exploration of this often overlooked asset class. This book is your roadmap to unlocking the secrets of vacant land investment. Inside these pages, you will uncover the transformative power of vacant land as a wealth-building tool. Discover how to spot promising properties, assess their true value, and capitalize on market trends. From understanding zoning and permits to leveraging financing strategies, you'll gain the knowledge and confidence to make savvy investment decisions. With each page you turn, you'll gain a deeper understanding of the profound impact your investments can have on the world around you. Getting Dollars from Dirt is not just a guidebook, it's a call to action. Whether you're a seasoned investor or a curious novice, this book will empower you to tap into the immense potential of vacant land and embark on a journey toward financial freedom and a brighter future.